Welcome to the Second Bite Podcast, where we talk with top entrepreneurs and CEOs about creating valuable companies through creative transactions. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome back to the Second Bite Podcast. This is the final episode of the Agency Growth Advisors series. I wanted to get really granular in this particular episode, so I asked each of our guests to give me some very specific answers, very granular answers around the questions about what podcast do they listen to, what book are they reading now or have they read that have impacted their business career most, what productivity tool do they use and how do they use that, and what's the best advice that they've ever received that has kind of helped propel their business career. I try to get as granular as possible. I think there's some pretty interesting takeaways in this episode. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks to our sponsors at Fiscal Advocate. All of the tools suggested in this episode, you can find links to all those in the show notes. So please refer to that and enjoy this episode. Jeremy Weisz from Rise 25. I'm going to go rapid fire on our last episode here. Number one. What podcast do you rely on or listen to most often that you enjoy?
Yeah. I mean, outside of my own and Smart Insider, I listen to John Corcoran's Smart Business Revolution a lot. That's a good one. You know, anything in the agency space I listen to just to learn. I listen to, obviously, the Second Bite podcast. I've listened to, I think, almost every episode. I listen to Jason Swenk's podcast, the Smart Agency Masterclass podcast. Again, all things agency. Those are a few ones. Again, it kind of depends what I'm looking to learn, but if I'm focused on the agency, those are the ones I go to.
What about a book? I know you consume a lot of audio, which will count here as well, but what are you listening to or reading now that you found very helpful?
So one of my favorites, which I listen to probably once a year, is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That's an amazing one. FBI hostage negotiator. The Four Agreements is another one I listen to every year. It's very simple, it's short, it's quick, which just kind of overall life lessons. Dan Ariely's Predictably Irrational is one of my favorite ones too, which I listen to about every year. It's just about how business and marketing and other things are actually predictably irrational. The ones I'm listening to now, I'm taking a look at my Audible right now. I just listened to The Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns. I listened to The New Gold Standard by Joseph Michelli, who I've had on the podcast, and Radical Candor by Kim Scott. I could keep going on, but those are a few.
Tell me about a productivity tool that you use that might surprise people how effective it is.
Yeah, so I love productivity tools. So that's a great question. I like LastPass is huge, from a password, first of all, from a security standpoint, but also I can go into a website, not have to look up what's my login and password. It just automatically syncs and logs me in. LastPass.
LastPass?
It's a Chrome plugin. It's like, I don't even know how much it is a year. It's probably, like $40 a year or something. It's really inexpensive. LastPass is great. Like, these are some of the tools that for me, like if they went down, I would be a little bit frantic. Text Expander is another one. The best, like $3 I spend a month, which is a desktop app. So if I type, like, I want to introduce Todd Taskey to someone, right? And I want to do a nice thorough job, but I want it to take like 30 minutes. I have a short code for Todd Taskey, intro Todd Taskey, full name. And I have a nice bio for You Saved. So I can go, hey, and it just pops in. It's a desktop app. So I can just go into an email, put intro Todd Taskey, boom. And so, because I make like 5 to 30 introductions a day, and that would take me 4 hours if I didn't have Text Expander. So we use it for our customer support to create, responses that we get or questions we get over and over again. So Text Expander is another one. Those are two big ones.
Yeah. And what about a piece of advice that you've gotten that has been instrumental or helpful in you growing Rise 25 and where you are in your career now?
I mean, for me, it goes back to your other question, which I think is key, which is find mentors, right? It could be actual mentors or distant mentors who have done what you want to do. So for me, because they give me the shortcut, right? I mean, I'd rather spend more money and pay people, mentors or groups that is going to save me tons of time and money in the long run. And that's been huge. I think I try and model in my career successful people and get their advice to help me shortcut things.
Super helpful. Jeremy Weisz from Rise 25. Thank you. Ian Garlick from Video Case Story. I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire. I would like to get to some real granular feedback on what you do to make your business more productive. Number one, maybe a podcast that you listen to regularly or that you get a lot of benefit from?
And to be honest with you, I've been listening to, I do my podcast. So I read books and then get the people on my podcast that I want to learn from, like yourself. So I'm like the Garlic Marketing Show. I'm like, I want to learn from this person. And selfishly, I get them on the podcast and I ask the questions that I want to know the answers to. So
that's a good approach. What about, you like to read a lot. What about books? Give me one that either you're reading currently or that you have benefited from in an outsized way.
I mean, Traction, Gino Wickman. It's a great book.
A great one, right?
Yeah. Gino Wickman's Traction from that standpoint. And right now I just came back to that great one. And from a tactical standpoint, there's, A Built to Sell is another great book, I think, from
John Warlow.
Yeah, John Warlow. Yeah, that's just a few of them. Right now another one I'm listening to is The Confidence Code, how we can be more confident throughout our entire lives. That's just, I'm constantly working on tactics, personal development and learning different marketing tactics as well.
Let me spill into tactics end for a second. Do you have a productivity tool that you use that works really well for you?
My productivity tool that works really well right now actually is Otter AI. Because anywhere I'm going, it's a transcription service, but I have it on my phone. And so if I have things I'm thinking about or writing or building content out or trying to build a task list, well, because all those ideas come to me not while I'm sitting at the desk, right? Yeah. It's like you're driving around, you're like, oh, I need to do this or I need to do that. Or we'll get off the phone here and I'm like, I need to, follow up with Todd about this and this and this. I can write that. I can just say it into there and it'll make that list for me. And then I can hand it off to one of my team members.
And that's Honor, Honor?
Otter, like the animal. Otter, yeah.
OTTOR.ai.
Yep.
Super. And then lastly, give me a piece of advice you got that has had an outsized impact in your success.
Yeah. Oh, so back a long time ago, I bartended at John George in New York. This was a long time ago. But I had this regular that was a billionaire. And he's like, you know what, Ian, the biggest success I've had is being able to walk to work. And it wasn't like the walking to work piece. It was designing your life first, because, there's a lot of people that are money motivated, but that billionaire success is there's a lot of luck to it. But if you design your life first and are working, it makes work a lot easier.
Wow, that's a good one. Excellent. Ian Garlic from Video Case Story, thank you for your time and thank you for your insight.
Thanks, Tom.
Bruce Eckfeldt, I want to go into rapid fire mode here.
Yeah.
A couple of questions. Tell me a podcast that you listen to that you get a lot from.
So Diary of a CEO is probably one of my favorite ones. I love the insights. I love the conversations. At this point, I like stories, right? Like I like hearing the stories of entrepreneurs. I mean, I've educated myself, to the teeth. I don't need any more frameworks and more like how-tos. it's the stories that I really love hearing. And that's one of the better ones I found.
What about a book that you're either reading now or you've read that's made a big impact in your success?
The one I always bring up is The Goal by Eli Goldratt. It's an old one. Not many people know about it. I kind of got to it from the Lean Agile community. But for me, I think it taught me one of the fundamentals about business and systems and how to operate, how to optimize those things that I still use today, right? Like every business is a system. And if you understand how systems work and you understand limiting constraints and capacity and optimization and work in progress, The Goal teaches you all those things. If every entrepreneur I work with only read one book, it would be that one.
Man, that's great. That comment, or that'll be in the show notes as well, how to find that book. Give me a productivity tool that you use that's super helpful.
My calendar. I'm a big believer in time is your only true limited resource. Everything goes into my calendar. I don't have to-do lists. I have calendars. I figure out what I'm going to do when, and it's a combination of what are my priorities and where's my highest value. But it's also a question of where's my energy levels, right? Like I know that certain times of the day, I can perform different types of tasks better or worse. Certain times of the week, I do better or worse.
So study and research and things like that, you'll put in your calendar for an hour on Tuesday and an hour on Friday?
Yeah, so I try to do, I'll do call days where it's just calls all day because I want to then have a free work day where I can actually get into big tasks. If my calendar is Swiss cheese of calls, I'm a mess, right? Like my productivity is a mess. So I try to really focus that. The other thing I know is my big thinking time is in the morning. Afternoon, I call brain dead, right? That's where I go to my list of, okay, I've got to update these things. I've got to get a flight. I've got to, organize this stuff. So I categorize the work that I do based on my cognitive performance that I know as the day shifts. And then everything else in my life has to go in there too. So I have to actually, if it's going to get done, it's going to go in my calendar.
Wow. Excellent. Low tech, but successful. Lastly, what's the best advice you think you've gotten that's had an outsized impact in your success?
So I have this phrase of, when you're going through hell, keep going. And it's just,
there's a country song about that too.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just one of those things. The other one is, this too shall pass, right? Like whatever situation you're in, and you can be at the top of the world and this is amazing. You got to remember it's going to change, right? Like you can't get too caught up in the moment on those things. Same thing with like low points, right? Like, okay, you're dealing with just a crazy storm of issues. You'll get through it. Just push through, get to the next hour, get to the next day. I'm a big believer in all things will change, and you just need to kind of keep going through it and doing the best you can and making smart decisions, not getting too overwhelmed with whatever you're dealing with in the moment.
Bruce Eckfeldt, that's great insight, man. I appreciate your responses. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Tim Kilroy, we're going to go into the rapid fire session here.
Okay.
Number one, podcast that you get the most from listening to.
It's not a business podcast. It's called Ologies by this woman named Allie Ward. It's about science and nature and nerdy stuff and people who are so incredibly passionate about these arcane fields that they engage in. And I love that because these are people who are weird, unusual, and totally committed to this thing like the study of squirrels or whatever. And it's a magical look at the way people actually think and work rather than all the marketing BS that we are inundated with.
And that link will be in the show notes. What book has helped your career the most?
So in my coaching career, it has without a doubt has been Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, specifically his decentralized leadership chapters, which I think are like chapters 12, 13, and 14. That is the way to run your agency. So buy the book, read it, actually get the audiobook because Jocko Willink and his co-author Leif have these really like nasty Marine, SEAL voices, and they talk like this, like we're in Fallujah. The audiobook is really good. Yeah.
Tim, how about a productivity tool that you use that's helpful?
A notebook. It's so sad. Because I have ADHD and I have tried every possible planner, tool, everything. Nothing works for me. So the only thing that really works for me is to basically do a mental throw up and get out everything that I need to do. And then I have basically this vomit on my desk, and I have to pick through and find the pieces that go to appropriate clients. And then I put it into Notion. I'm sure there are better ways to do it, but that's the way it works for me.
I love the descriptive terms. Thank you. What about the best advice that you have gotten that's had an outsized impact in your career?
Don't be smart, be helpful.
And you do that, I know, in your practice, correct?
Yeah, I'm
a little
really
bit of both,
good
actually.
Yeah, like I'm really good at not being smart. So I try to over index on the helpful.
Well, I know that your clients and students would agree that you have been that for a long time for them. So job well done.
Thank you.
Tim Kilroy, thank you for joining me today. Josh Johnston from Hydra. Rapid fire questions. Number one, what podcast do you listen to that you get the most from?
Yeah, so I'm a big Alex Hormozi fan. Watch a lot of his podcasts and YouTube videos. The Game is his podcast, really solid one. Also a big fan of for specifically like storytelling and copywriting. My First Million podcast is a really solid one as well. It's pretty entertaining. Sam Parr and Sean, I forgot his last name, but those guys are excellent. Those are two podcasts that I have just on repeat constantly, and they post pretty consistent content. And also it's very high level, high value content that, typically you'd have to pay for a lot of that information.
What about books? What book has helped your career the most?
Yeah, I think the one that sticks out like immediately at the top of my mind is a book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. If you guys aren't familiar with Mike Michalowicz as an author, I would highly recommend getting to know him, especially if you're more in the beginning stages of building your business. These are like what I call like the business fundamentals book. He has a ton of different really good resources on systems building, on lead generation, on building a profit first model within your business. So Mike Michalowicz would probably be my number one author. After that, man, there's so many great options. But if you're looking for more of like the leadership side, I'm a big fan of Patrick Lencioni on the leadership side. So if you're looking for more leadership development, check out The Motive by Patrick Lencioni, really solid one. And then let's do one more. If you're looking for like more offer or lead generation side, I mean, Alex Hormozi all day. You got $100 million leads and $100 million offers. Really great playbook on standing up your first lead gen systems and starting to get some traction in the marketplace you're going after.
Excellent. What about a productivity tool that you use that helps?
Yeah, I got to plug my own. So I built this. I've gone through so many productivity trainings and tools and planners and masterminds and all of this. And really, I took the best from each of them. And I built something called the Agency Impact Planner, which if you follow me, you can get access for free. It's typically in a lot of the links in my bios. But in my opinion, that's the best one. But I learned a lot of it from actually Taylor Welch and a system called the Morning Formula. That's what I base a lot of my training off of now for productivity for our own clients. But Taylor Welch had it boiled down to a science. And then Craig, I think he got it from a guy named Craig, who came up with the Perfect Day Formula, which is a really solid one as well. So check out the Perfect Day Formula or Morning Formula by Taylor Welch. Both of those are really solid.
Super. And then what about the best piece of advice that you've gotten that maybe has had an outside impact in your success today?
Ooh, man, do you want something that's a little bit more business related or something that's a little bit more mindset?
I will take one of each, please.
One of each. All right. Well, let's start on the mindset side. I had a mentor before I even started entrepreneurship. He was actually my manager at a Fit Body boot camp. I used to be a coach at a Fit Body boot camp. And I remember coming in dog tired some days. They're talking, you have to start at 5 a.m. 5 a.m. session starts. You got to be there by like 4:30, 4:15. And I remember coming in dog tired one day. And he brought me back into the office and he was like, hey man, I can tell you're tired today, but I'm going to bring it for you. And he went out and delivered some of the best workout sessions I've ever seen in my entire life. And then after that group of sessions, we kind of went for a walk, came back, and he pointed out a door handle to me. And he goes, I have this internal cue that anytime I touch a door handle, that I'm going to bring the joy. And that's what he thinks of. Every time he touches a door handle, he thinks, bring the joy. And I think that's such a cool leadership and mindset lesson, because for me, I've changed that internal cue sense. It used to be I touch a door handle, bring the joy. But now it's anytime I jump into a Zoom room, anytime that I jump into an online meeting, a podcast, how can I bring the joy into this specific arena and show people that, one, I'm passionate about what I do, but also that I'm someone that is going to bring my best every single time I enter into what I call like a game day scenario. So that's the first one on mindset. And people will bash mindset all day, but I'm a huge proponent of it. I like a good feel good story. So that's my mindset one. On the business side, a great business one. So I had a mentor when I started my very first agency. We were doing probably 40, 50K a month at that time. And it was a very first mastermind that I ever been to. And I remember him sitting up front and him saying, business likes two things specifically. One is simplicity. And the second one is rhythm. Okay? And I remember him sitting in front of us all, and big dude, imagine a big guy, cowboy hat, cowboy boots from Dallas, Texas, chews on a cigar while hanging out with all of his friends and stuff. And he's just hitting his hand like this. Business likes two things, simplicity and rhythm. And to this day, it is what I try to build all of my businesses off of, which is simplicity and rhythm. And when you add complexity into businesses, chances are they're going to move slower, and chances are they're going to grow faster. So for us, our methodology with anything that we do is, how do we make it as simple as possible to follow? How do we make this rhythmic so we can repeat that process time and time again without all the complexities that tend to come in business as you continue to grow? I want to make the slowest moving companies fast again, because we all remember startup mode, right? Whenever you're in startup, like, things move fast. You can make changes, you can make pivots, but as you grow as an organization, things tend to slow down. There's operational drag. And so for us, something that I always have to keep in mind as we grow as a business, as our clients grow, is that we need to keep things simple and rhythmic.
Great advice. Josh Johnston from Hydra. Thank you. Aaron from Agency Alliance. I want to hit you with some rapid fire questions and just get your insight on those. Number one, give me a podcast that you listen to regularly that you get a lot of benefit from.
I'd say Founders is the name of the podcast. Stories of founders that have grown, scaled, sold, and have incredible stories that you can, leverage in your firms, and kind of a lot of cheat codes in there that you can borrow.
Excellent. Very good. What about a book that you're reading now or listening to that has impacted you a bunch?
Yeah. So this book, which happens to be right beside me here, which I am really enjoying, and I would recommend. So it's called Nick and Zach's Adventures in Capitalism. And it is about these two guys, Nick and Zach, Nick Sleep and Zach, I forget Zach's last name, but in the book. And basically these guys start a fund, a financial fund, like Warren Buffett style fund. And over like 10 years, they take a $1 invested and convert it into like close to like $10.50 or something. It's an incredible feat. And what they talk about in the book, which is just surprising, I found surprising, is both the number of business models that they sussed through to land on their strategy. And what's surprising about that is the number of business models that work are very few and far between. So, and one of them is agency, by the way. So agency is a model that works.
Yeah,
they talk about that in the book. And then they also have some really important lessons around other investments that they make and why they work. And one of them, in short, is called, the authors call Scaled Economy Shared. And really important business lessons that come from, as you scale any firm, and they look at like Amazon and Costco and some of the big firms that scale, but this can be applicable to any firm going through scale. And one of the most important things that you can do through scale is share the benefits of scale with every shareholder. So that includes your staff, your employees, your clients, your customers, and of course, shareholders. But this ability to share the benefits, both in terms of like cost benefits and other benefits that come with scale, and keep sharing the benefits with every stakeholder.
Excellent. What about a productivity tool that you use that's effective for you?
So I don't know if my answer is a tool so much, but I have used a lot of tools. I find the problem with tools is that, especially with the internet and with tools being on phones and easily available, is that it's really easy to create like an infinite list of things you need to do, or it's a to-do list tool, or even other things you put into these productivity tools. It's just so easy to overwhelm. And I think it's, part of the use of productivity tools, I think, should be actually the opposite. It's, as you're growing and scaling, you want to be first eliminating, which comes before delegating, which then finally comes automating once you've got the processes dialed in. And the way that I would use productivity tools, in quotes, when I was doing this at my firm and now in my my businesses today, is a combination of an Eisenhower matrix, which I can explain in a second, and Post-it notes.
Wow. So tell me about, I know Post-it notes, so tell me about Eisenhower.
So the Eisenhower matrix, I think I have a slight adaptation on it, but I think like the main Eisenhower matrix is basically 4 quadrants that you put up on like a whiteboard or like whatever big board you have in your workspace. And there's basically 2 axes. One is like the top left high axis is like most important things that I need to do, and only really I can do them, like as the leader owner. So you put things in that box for that. Then you have like below it, still really important stuff, but all delegatable. You put that in there. And then you have kind of the same thing, not so important, but still kind of, I would need to figure it out or at least get it started. And then not so important and definitely delegatable. And what I do is I quite literally have this on a board and I post it notes into the 4 different quadrants depending on the thing. And what this does is it's like a self-enforced restraint to both not put too much on the board, because you should be eliminating, and then B, being just very clear about what task goes where. And you have to actually, like, when I complete a task, I'll stand up, walk over and move it over to the next. So this is again making me think about the importance of each task and how it's flowing through those 4 quadrants multiple times a day.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And what about one piece of advice that has had an outsized impact in your business life or professional life?
Yeah, I think it's, when I was in my agency journey, I sat down with a really prominent business guy, person I respect a lot. And 2 things came out of that sit down. So we sort of shared coffee together. And he said, hey, like, one thing he asked me was, who's on your advisory board? And at that point in time, I kind of shrugged. I was like, I think I know what you mean, but I'm a part of like YPO, and I'm in the Vistage thing, and I have some great people to turn to, friends. And he basically said, no, like, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, you need people that have done the thing that you eventually want to do, that you can regularly, repeatedly turn to as you're going through that journey. So that one piece of it was just having that advisory board network, whatever we want to call it, was one. And then the other is its composition, because as they said, which it was effectively, the turn of phrase was, as you're thinking about who to turn to for advisory, you cannot ask somebody for directions to a place that they have never been. So that person might be very successful. Maybe they built and scaled and sold a $300 million SaaS firm, or they are machinists and they're running a very successful machining business. That's not, they haven't walked the path that you're going to walk if you want to go down that path. And that's you. So think about that before you ask the question or ask questions to those folks.
Aaron Levenstadt from Agency Alliance, thanks for that insight.
Thank you.
All right, Jason Swenk, rapid fire round, if you're ready. Number 1, what podcast do you listen to that you get the most from?
You're gonna find it funny, but I listen to 2, Seth Godin and Joe Rogan. Totally opposite.
I listen to those 2 as well and enjoy them both, actually. What book have you read or are you reading that has helped your career significantly?
How to Never Lose a Client Again by Joey Coleman. It's a really good framework about the first 100 days when you bring on a client.
Wow, that's great. Name a productivity tool that you use regularly that's effective.
I use ActiveCampaign. It's a great marketing automation tool that we just use to streamline the hell out of our business.
And then what's the best advice that you've gotten that's maybe had an outside impact in your success?
Focus, finish one commitment until success.
Good one. Jason Swenk, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Second Bite podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.